Good afternoon, distinguished guests, partners, and stakeholders. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar, Akwaba Obake, and a very warm welcome to everyone who is on the call today. On behalf of British International Investment and the UK Ghana Chamber of Commerce, I warmly welcome you to today's thought leadership event themed The Future is Productive and Inclusive, Building Models That Leave No One Behind. My name is Joanne Saki. I'm the Deputy Country Director for the UK Department for Business and Trade at the British High Commission in Ghana. And it's my pleasure to be your moderator this afternoon. In today's global economy, profitability alone is no longer enough. Businesses and investors increasingly are called upon to demonstrate inclusivity and sustainability in their operations. Yet for many emerging markets and smaller businesses, the concept of impact remains misunderstood or very narrowly defined. We're here to understand better and change the narrative. We know that potential in Ghana is immense, and our goal is to unlock that potential by designing business models that are inherently inclusive and actively seek to create value and opportunity for all. This is important for businesses as times change. Before we proceed, I'd like to share a few housekeeping rules. When you joined, you noticed that your microphone was muted. This is to prevent background noise from disrupting the speakers and other attendees. If you have a question, please type your question in the Q&A feature on your screen, and we'll address them at the time for question and answers. Please stay for the entire duration of the webinar, as valuable information will be shared throughout the session. The webinar is being recorded and will be shared on Facebook. So at this point, I'll hand over to Mr. Kwabena Asante-Opoku, Ghana's country lead for BII, to deliver his opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Good afternoon, everyone, again, and thanks again for joining us. On behalf of British International Investment and the UK Ghana Chamber of Commerce, I'm very happy to welcome you to this webinar. Today's topic is very important for Ghana and for businesses everywhere. Like Joanne mentioned, businesses are expected to do more than make profit. They're expected to create jobs, support communities, and protect the environment. But many people still ask, what does impact really mean? Today's session would help answer that question. British International Investment is the UK's development finance institution. We have over 76 years of investing for impact. We believe that inclusive growth is good for businesses and good for society. And when business includes more people and think about sustainability, we grow stronger and create long-term value. Over the next hour, you would hear from experts and business leaders. We hope that this discussion would give you new ideas, help build partnerships that make a real difference. Thanks again. Let's make this discussion interactive, insightful, and impactful. Back to you, Joanne.
Thank you so much, Kwabena. Next, I'll hand over to Fatima Jimante Umar, who is a Development Impact Executive at British International Investment. She has over a decade of experience in development finance and impact investing. She's led initiatives on SDG-aligned investments, blended finance, and private sector engagement at the UNDP. She's a certified trainer on SDG impact standards. Fatima is recognized for advancing Africa's impact investment ecosystem and driving strategies that deliver lasting social and environmental change. So Fatima, over to you for the BII presentation.
Thank you, Joanne. Give me one moment to just share my screen. All right, so thank you everyone once again for joining us. I will attempt to set the context for today's conversation before we go into the crux of the webinar, which is the panel. So impact investing, I mean, this is a theme that has been full discourse for a long time now, but it's often a lot of misunderstanding around it. Simply put, impact investments are investments that are made with the intent to create impact and returns. Some have generally argued that all investments in Africa can create impact in one way or the other. And while that can broadly be said, impact investments are typically guided by, first and foremost, the principle of intentionality. So to what extent is a business or an investor being intentional about the impacts they're trying to generate? Measurability, to what extent can you measure said social or environmental impact? And additionality, which is value addition beyond a business as usual scenario. Impact investing can be across a range of sectors. These are not by any means exhaustive, but just to give you a sense of what some of these investments look like. And impact investors also look like different things. They look like development finance institutions such as BII, or fund managers or pension funds across the board. Why does it matter? Why did we pull you out of your very busy days to talk about this? I think for me, it's quite simple. We are in a continent of over 1.5 billion people. It's estimated that about 70% of the population in Africa is under the age of 30. And a lot of people have called this a demographic dividend waiting to be tapped, but also some have called it a demographic bomb if left unattended. But let's look at some statistics. Inflation over the course of the past few years have been somewhere around 6%. Growth has been around 4%. It's estimated that about 426 million Africans live in extreme poverty. We've seen incidences of absolute poverty increasing in countries like Nigeria and the DRC. In Ghana, it is estimated that Ghana is off track to achieving SDG Goal 1 for poverty. And while these stats look a little chaotic, so to speak, they're not much different from global realities. We see a general slowdown in the growth, in global growth in the midst of a lot of uncertainties. However, within the African context, where vulnerabilities are typically much higher, this easily translates into issues like food inflation, widening inequalities, and deeper levels of poverty. Bringing it closer to home to Ghana, the picture isn't exactly different from what we see in the African context. We see a huge portion of the population being under the age of 25, actually about 57% of the population. So again, the question of demographic bomb or demographic dividend comes into play here. Unemployment is also significantly above the continent's average at around 13%. So if you ask why we need to think more critically about how we invest and how we do business, I would say it's for this reason, that we need to build economies, we need to create jobs, we need to build industries, we need to empower our people. But in practice, how do we do that when financing is not necessarily readily available? Over the past few decades, there's been a consistent decline in aid budget. Several African countries, as we all know, have heavy debt obligations, which simply means that there's very little room for capital to be used for development purposes. And so for the most part, the private sector is where most of the solution lies. And there have been a lot of success stories we've seen at BII where we invest for impact and still are able to generate returns in tandem. A little bit about BII. I mean, Kwabena has shared most of what we do, but the way we translate impact is typically underpinned by three broad objectives. We invest to generate productive outcomes, so where we deploy capital to basically help countries grow and to support a decent standard of living. We invest for sustainable outcomes, where we recognize that climate change has real implications for lives and livelihoods across the markets that we operate. And so we invest to support transition to net zero and also to build resilient economies. And finally, but most certainly not the least, we are quite deliberate about reaching low-income people and low-income countries. We are very deliberate in prioritizing investments that address the needs of women, and also we have a big focus on investing and supporting Black-owned or Black-led businesses. Focusing on our productive objective, which is the general theme of today's conversation, we typically assess how productive we're being, or we typically assess development needs in the countries that we invest in from a range of different areas. Some of them look like power access, for example, or we assess the need for industrialization or the need for financial services for SMEs or enhanced export performance and the likes. Our impact framework typically helps us to better focus on what we hope to achieve. So broadly, we ask ourselves questions that help us articulate what impact we are trying to create, who benefits from it, and by how much they benefit. We also like to think about how we aim to achieve said impact. So simply put, is our investment going to be achieved, is our impact rather going to be achieved through investing directly in a business, for example? Or is it maybe a little more nuanced and indirect, where we look at broader macroeconomic outputs or market level development? In practice, this can look like, say, investing in a corporate bond that helps deepen Ghana's capital markets, for instance, or investing in a telecom company that will increase access to technology and information for the country as a whole, or investing directly in an agribusiness with the aim of increasing access to markets for smallholder farmers. This is one example of one of BII's investments in Nigeria. It's called Bangona. It is basically an agribusiness that supports smallholder farmers with everything from agricultural inputs, financing, harvest, and marketing services, and the likes. But Bangona operates 100% in northern Nigeria, which is an area that is typically considered hard to reach. Not many people are deploying capital in northern Nigeria. But Bangona also reaches 100% low-income farmers, smallholder farmers in rural communities. Again, areas typically considered a bit too risky to invest in, for example. But Bangona has been able to do this, and it's been able to reach about 40,000 smallholder farmers. And we estimate that they'll be able to reach over 140,000 farmers by 2029. So such innovative business models like this is what we generally need to see more of in the continent, where investors and businesses are being a lot more intentional about how they deploy capital into what I would call a business unusual setting, considering all of the challenges and opportunities that we face in Ghana and on the continent as a whole. So the general call to action is to think about whether you're a fund manager or a business entity or a manufacturer or a financial institution, thinking about where we can deploy capital in a way that can generate a return, but not only a return on commercial terms, but also a return on impact, where we would see hopefully improvements in lives and livelihoods of the people, of the 1.5 billion people or the 30-something million people in Ghana. Thank you. I'll pause here and hand over to Joanne, and then we can get into maybe hearing a bit more from our panelists, where they will share a bit more about their business models and how they are articulating impact.
Thank you very much, Fatima. That is certainly insightful. So we'll move on to a panel discussion now, and to help us unpack today's agenda, we have an exceptional panel of leaders from organizations that are actively shaping Ghana's economic future. Their expertise spans human capital, corporate finance, and localized impact execution. We have with us Mr. Paul Agbai, HR Director at Unilever Ghana. He brings to this discussion a wealth of knowledge on building inclusive workforces and skills pipelines. Mr. Obed Ashi, Head of Corporate Debt at Absa Bank Ghana, will share insights on ensuring capital and financial services reach undeserved enterprises. Ms. Trewa Osei-Mensah is ES and Impact Manager at Growth Investment Partners. She focuses on ensuring local investments translate into sustainable, environmental, social, and inclusive development outcomes on the ground. The goal of this discussion is to move beyond the theory and delve into actionable strategies. We'll explore how to build these productive and inclusive models across our businesses and the investment landscape. So a warm welcome to our panelists. So we'll begin with an opening question. Conversations about business models usually focus on productivity, like we've said, and this is changing significantly to focus a lot more on inclusivity. From your organization's perspective, how would you define an inclusive outcome? And what would you say is the most critical ingredient needed to close the gap between inclusivity and productivity? We could start with Paul.
Thanks very much, Joanne, and a very warm welcome to everyone on this webinar. So, in touching on the topic, inclusive models, ensuring that no one is left behind. For us in Unilever, and based on our operations and our belief around inclusivity, the key ingredients are one, intentional leadership. Leadership in the organization, leadership in the society, having a clear mandate or having a clear line of sight to say, this is what we want to create within the organization, or this is the culture we want to cultivate within the organization. And then the second important ingredient for us over here is knowledge and understanding of the concept of inclusivity, and then bringing it back or linking it back to its role in driving productivity. For us, we look at inclusivity beyond numbers or beyond the metrics, but rather measuring it as culture. To what degree do people feel that sense of belonging when they come to work? To what degree do people bring their full selves when they come into the workplace, regardless of their race, their creed, gender, background, or what have you? We believe everybody should come into the organization giving off 100% to whatever it is that they do. So for us, inclusion or inclusivity is majorly culture-driven or majorly hinged on culture, like I'd called out, the two ingredients being intentional leadership, leadership setting this as a mandate, and then putting the right level of investment behind it. And then as well, spending a lot more time to demystify the concept of inclusivity, to make sure that everybody understands this concept right from the bottom to the person at the last mile. Thanks, Joanne.
Thank you very much. Cheryl, I'll come to you next. How would you define it, and how do we close the gap between inclusivity and productivity?
Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Juan, and thank you, team, for putting this event or webinar together. So far, I think there's so much we are learning, even from the get-go. But for GIP, I think I would answer this question with two words: intentionality and equity. Being able to intentionally deploy equitable capital to certain underserved sectors within the Ghanaian economy. And that is what GIP has been able to do through its business model and its impact themes that seeks to deploy patient and flexible growth capital to SMEs. We consider SMEs a bit underserved because of the barrier to capital generally in the finance sector. SMEs are usually faced with high capital collateral requirements for capital access. They have challenges with tenor for their capitals, because these companies are small and they require time to grow. And so we decided to embed inclusivity into our business model such that we'll be able to offer something different beyond what is already on the market or the Ghanaian economy. And so we are able to deploy capital to scale up small industries. We are able to deploy capital to female-led businesses. And these are groups that we feel once we empower, they are able to generate more productivity. Again, we also deploy capital to Black-owned businesses. And so to me, the single most important ingredient to bridging the gap between inclusivity and productivity is intentional deployment of capital to certain sectors within the economy that are underserved. And so by so doing, you're able to unlock inclusive productivity. Thank you, Joanne. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chewa. Obed, what's your opinion on this from ABSA's perspective?
Yeah, thanks very much, Joanne, and for the privilege for us to share our perspectives when it comes to what needs to be done and what we are doing as ABSA Bank to help in closing the gap between productivity and then inclusivity. So this is the right time to have that conversation. And thanks to UKGCC and BI for putting this thought leadership conversation together. For us in Absa Bank, defining inclusivity basically is closely linked to our purpose. And our purpose is to empower Africa's tomorrow together, one story at a time. This is because for us in Absa, we believe that everyone's story matters and it must be heard. So we've made commitments both to our employees internally and to our external clients that we provide financial services to ensure that particularly the underserved community, which is basically women and young ones, are given access to financial services to enable them thrive and grow. So internally, for us as a bank, we provide equal opportunity to all colleagues, irrespective of your gender, your age, your abilities. Everyone within the bank has an equal opportunity. Secondly, for our external clients or those that we provide financial solutions for, we ensure that they get access to affordable financing by offering unsecured and concessionary financing, particularly to this underserved group of women and youth-led businesses. And the impact we've seen has been very significant over the last few years when we as a bank took a particular interest in this sector to see how we can help them grow, to ensure that they are not left behind in the growth that we've seen over the years. Aside helping them access concessionary financing and putting in place financing solutions that addresses their need, we also help them to create that capacity that they need to ensure that whatever business venture they engage in, that business is successful, it grows, and then that leads to them employing more people, focus on the youth. So from my personal view or opinion, in terms of the key ingredients required to close the productivity and the inclusivity gap is the intentional collaboration across diverse stakeholders. And these stakeholders includes governments, the private sector, the civil society, local communities. And this collaboration should help in co-creating policies and models that help drive the reduction or the closing of the gap between productivity and then inclusivity. And these models must balance economic performance, which is the productive angle of the conversation, with social equity, which is the inclusivity part of the conversation. And for us, we think this is quite critical for Ghana because, despite the fact that we've seen positive economic growth over the years, the disparity between urbanization and the rural or gender gaps still exist. And therefore, it's quite important that we get that intentional collaboration to create the model and solutions that will help close the gap. And this is quite important because it will create shared ownership and trust. And that will ensure that whatever model is implemented can be sustainable and help reduce the gap between productivity and then inclusivity.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your submission. Paul, I'll come back to you on the points you made earlier. You talked about creating a culture internally and looking at it beyond metrics. But from the context of productivity as Unilever, what is the real return on investment for a truly inclusive workplace?
Thanks very much, Joanne. And but for me particularly, having conversations on inclusion is always an exciting opportunity for me. The return on investment for all of the interventions we have taken over the period on inclusivity, part of what we have seen so far is, being the kind of business that we operate, we take pride in saying every home across the world has a Unilever product, and that is backed by science or by data. We are only able to achieve this feat bearing in mind that our consumers are a diverse group. that then influences the level of innovation that we undertake to say, whatever it is that you're taking, whatever products that we are churning out, it should be able to serve the various groups of people that there are. The second thing for me is talent pipeline. That equally fits into innovation. Our focus on bringing people into the organization goes beyond a particular group of people. We are very, very strategic and deliberate around spreading or casting our nets wide to say people of different race, different religion, gender, inclusion of persons with disability into our employment fold has helped to build our talent pipeline. And I was very happy when Obed spoke about collaboration. We have over the years partnered and worked with various groups of people to bring in underrepresented groups like persons with disabilities into the organization for various employment opportunities. With the skill acquisition and skill development, this group of people serve as a talent pool or talent pipeline for us. The other thing is engagement. We see a lot of engagement, we see a lot of collaboration within the organization, knowing that the perspectives that come through in deliberation in the course of work is not one-sided. It comes from different groups of people, different colors. That only helps us to make the best decisions, which eventually leads to the best result. And then finally, performance. I'm sure for people who are close to the details, we are making very good progress around our performance. And there have been quite a number of research and surveys that have been done by McKinsey, Harvard Business Review, and co, indicating that companies or organizations that have a certain level of diversity, and diversity in this case is more gender, return a certain level of profitability. And for me, I see that when I look at our diversity numbers today, at the moment at senior management level, the diversity representation is about 45, 46%, which for me is a great leap or very good progress from where we started off from. And we are very much committed. We are very much committed to achieving that. And then finally, I've spoken about engagement. Is also that sense of belonging. When people come to the workplace with themselves fully operating in their full capacity, that helps us as an organization to get more, and then being able to reach out to our consumers, knowing that our consumers are from a diverse pool of people. That has also helped us, and that all of these contribute to the return on investment for interventions on inclusivity. Thanks, John.
Thank you so much. That is indeed interesting. It's a fact that every house has Unilever products, and I always get surprised when I discover which other products is also Unilever made. Okay, Obed, I'll come to you next. When ABSA is assessing a corporate client for debt, how important are environmental, social, and governance factors, especially the social or inclusion aspect of it in the entire decision-making process? How do you assess it?
Thank you once again, Joanne. So for us in ABSA, considering ESG as part of our financing is very critical. And for this reason, we have a dedicated team focusing on ESG. And we have colleagues whose sole responsibility is to consider the ESG impact of every transactions that we do. So every single deal that goes through the bank for consideration, the ESG aspect of that transaction is considered. And that shows how this is quite important for us. Basically, we do not want to participate in transactions that will have negative impact on the environment and on the people. Because for us in ABSA, we have a commitment to the communities in which we operate, that we are doing everything possible to leave them better than we met them. And that's stewardship for us. So it's quite critical that every transaction we do, we assess to make sure that there is nothing that will have negative impact on the environment and then on people. Now, transactions that have positive impact on people, that is the social, as you did ask of, are transactions that we look at favorably. And I must say that over the few years, we've done a number of transactions where the focus of those transactions is to improve the livelihood of people, particularly women and the youth. There's this one transaction we did for a mobility company, basically to provide access of vehicles to low-income groups, and particularly to women. So these individuals get the opportunity to own a vehicle over a period of 3 to 4 years. This wouldn't have been possible if they go through the usual commercial banking system to ask for financing, because the chances are that they wouldn't qualify for financing. But because the social angle is so critical for us in ABSA, transactions of that nature are considered favorably. There's one particular one we are currently considering. It's basically to help women in the informal sector to get access to mobile phones. We know currently in Ghana, our mobile penetration rate is over 100%. Data penetration is between 75 to 80%, which means that if these underserved groups have access to mobile phones, they can have access to financial services. So we are supporting an institution, a fintech, that is creating that enabling environment for people in the informal sector, particularly women, which we know they dominate that sector, to have access to mobile phones. And the transaction is structured such a way that they paid for the mobile phones as and when they earn money. We know that those in the informal sector earn money on a daily basis, either through the trading activities or providing services on a daily basis. So asking them to make payment in advance for a device may be challenging. But then giving them the opportunity to own this device based on the cash flows or the income they generate on a daily basis gives them the opportunity to have access to a phone, which typically they wouldn't. Now, with that phone, they get access to financial services, which brings them to the formal banking sector. So for us in ABSA, the social part is quite key when we are considering transactions within the bank. And that said, because it is quite critical, we've gone into partnership with DFIs, like the MasterCard Foundations, with the Development Bank of Ghana, to ensure that we are able to provide access to financing at rates to these group of people that will otherwise not have access to financing. So for example, through our MasterCard Foundation, we are able to give loans to women and youth-led businesses up to 2 million Ghana cedis collateral free. And those facilities are given at a rate of 10%, which will agree with me that is significantly below the current commercial rate. As ABSA, we are doing this just because of the yes in the ESG, to make sure that this underserved group of people, women-led and the youth-led organization, gets access to financing so that that can help them to grow their business and also create the opportunity for others, particularly women and the youth, to also come into the business, and then they can also cover their needs. So that is what we do when it comes to assessing transaction or providing financing, and having a holistic view around the ESG impact, making sure that transactions that have positive impact on the S are given the right attention, because we know that we want to make positive impact in the communities in which we operate.
Thank you so much. Chewa, I know you would probably have a very similar experience in trying to assess your clients for impact. What I want to know from you, you could share a real example that you've encountered, is the greatest challenge that is on the ground that probably you face or investees face when they are trying to adopt inclusive practices. Is there an example you can share? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Joanne. Yes, there are examples I can share from my experience in the role. I think Paul indicated how, Obed actually indicated how ABSA assesses all their clients against some ESG standards. It's similar to what Growth Investment Partner also does. We do screen all our transactions against some social outcomes or social standards and environmental requirements to make sure that no risk takes us by surprise, in the course of the investment. And in the course of these due diligence and trying to identify all these social issues, we do notice that the challenge with most, and I'm speaking because we deal with most of the SMEs, the challenge we face is the lack or the limited awareness of what the concept of ESG is, or the social standards are. And so you do have situations where you might assess a client and they do have some practices in place, social practices in place, but they don't know that these are all impacts they are making. They don't know that these are all outcomes, social outcomes they are making. And so trying to be intentional, putting together data, records to measure how much impact they are making now becomes a challenge, because they don't know that these are impact they are actually making. And so what GIP has been able to do through our model is to be able to provide capacity building to these SMEs to bring them up to speed of what is required of them as far as social impact, environmental impacts are concerned. This year, we undertook a training, an ESMS training for our pipeline companies and our portfolio companies. The reason being that we needed to, share this knowledge across our SMEs to point them out to areas of impact they are already doing, but they don't even know they are doing. Letting them understand that if you have a good number of women in your organization, you would need to put structures in place to protect them as part of inclusivity. And so where is your gender-based violence policy? Do you have anything like that? And so we get them to understand that these are areas that if they are able to focus on, ultimately they are able to improve on their performance and productivity as well. We are also able to provide business support services, our TA program, that gives them opportunity to build structures in-house, governance, financial management systems in-house, ELS support systems in-house, to guide them through these processes and improve these challenges as we work with them. We also ensure we do hands-on support. We give them hands-on support through our ES action plans. So we have what we call environmental and social action plans in situations where we assess these clients and realize that there are certain gaps as far as their inclusive practices are concerned. We do put these systems in place for them, give them timelines, and note, because we deal with SMEs, a lot of these gaps exist. But once we do due diligence and they come up, it is not a showstopper. It's not a way to tell them we are not financing, because at the end of the day, our business model is supposed to support, grow these companies to be bigger entities, more inclusive productivity outcomes. And so we do identify these gaps, work with our clients to ensure that by the time we close these investment, they have been able to improve all the gaps within their management systems as far as social outcomes are concerned, and also provide them guidelines as to how to monitor, how to track and communicate these inclusive and productive outcomes very well within their organization. And so, Joanne, I think that's what Growth Investment Partners have been able to do so far. Thank you.
Awesome. That's absolutely fantastic. I'd like to encourage everybody to put your questions in the Q&A section on the app or in the chat. We've got one question, so we'll start with that. The question is to ABSA, and the participants would like to know if they're seeking a bank to issue an SBLC that will serve as a complete assurance guarantee for their hotel in Sunyani. Would ABSA be open to coming on board in that capacity?
Joanne, and I must say that yes, ABSA will be willing to come in the capacity as the issuing bank to issue the SBLC in order to support your business activity. This is an area where we play very well. We have a very strong trade and working capital team that supports businesses across the country to ensure that their trade-related activities are done within their expectation. So I will encourage you that after this session, you can walk into our branch, any branch closest to you, or through your phone, you can have access to our customer service team. Just let them know the support you need, and then we'll be willing to come to provide you the needed assistance to ensure that you are able to get the SVLC issued as soon as possible.
Awesome. I hope you actually get in touch with ABSA after this response. So there's one question that I think would be the cherry on top of the cake for this webinar. What is the single best piece of advice you can offer to other Ghanaian SMEs seeking investment on how to showcase their businesses as productive and truly inclusive? So Unilever, from your perspective as a business, what will be that piece of advice, ABSA, GIP? So I'll start with Paul.
Thanks again, Joanne. Really good conversation so far. So a couple of things. The first thing would be what I call the corporate identity. How do we infuse this into the corporate identity? So for us at Unilever, if you go through a Unilever application process, at the bottom, there's a footnote there to say we accept applications from all groups of people. In case you're a person with special need, indicate so that the right level of what we call reasonable accommodation will be made for you. So that's always important. The second thing is to seek collaboration, because clearly with the society within which we live, we may not be able to do it all, both from a capacity standpoint, from a capability or a knowledge gap standpoint. There will certainly be need for that level of collaboration. So that's something that we need to see. And then the final thing for me is, how do we get to a place of reviewing our processes and our policies? It goes beyond calling it out as a corporate identity and then seeking partners or collaborators on the journey. But it's now important, how do we bring it to life? And if I could share an example in a few seconds. When we started the journey in Unilever of how do we create inclusion for persons with disability, we partnered with an organization called Sight Savers International, who we brought to our site to audit our site to say we wanted to make our site disability friendly. So we took them around our site, the various places of use, and they gave us recommendation. We put some investment behind it, and we're able to close those gaps. We got to review our policy. Our policies are very family friendly, the ones that are linked to being able to make the workplace conducive for females. That we also ensure that we had it drafted, we had it written, we had it circulated across or within the organization to ensure that the knowledge is irrigated within the organization. No judgment if I need to apply this particular policy, which would serve my need or which would serve my peculiar circumstance, right? So these would be the three things, Joanne, I'll leave the team with. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Obed, from ABSA's perspective, you see a lot of clients every day. What's the one thing you need them to know?
So the one important thing is to have proper governance structures in place, irrespective of the size of your business. It's one thing we've seen based on our experience dealing with micro, medium, and small scale enterprises, where the business itself is not separated from the promoter of the business. The promoters of the business run the business accounts on their personal account and use proceeds from the business to cover their personal needs. In so doing, it becomes difficult for them to have access to financing. So in respect of the size of your business, it's important that you have a proper governance structure in place. And I want to encourage everyone, those that may not have heard about our She Business proposal. It's a business proposal that we've given out to our clients, particularly women-led businesses, where we offer tailored financial advisory services. So please just approach any ABSA bank or ABSA relation manager or go to our website, register for that. We offer that capacity training to enable you to know the things you need to focus on as a small business SME to ensure business growth, for you to be able to create employment for other women and the youth. So this is a key thing I want to highlight for the one who asked the question to do.
Thank you so much. Choa, you listed some of the challenges that you've encountered in your role, what would you say is the one thing you would need businesses to know if you're going to be talking to them, if they're going to make sure that they attract investment like yours?
Thank you, Joanne. I think my single piece of advice to SMEs particularly is for them to be able to measure impact or inclusivity. They should be able to define what impact means to them as an organization. I can cite the SDGs as an example. Almost all of us are working towards meeting the SDGs by 2030, but the valid question is, can we meet all the SDGs at a go? Depending on your business, what you do, your target market, we should be able to define what inclusivity, what impact can I make with the product I'm putting out there, with the employees within my organization, at the board level. You should be able to measure that. In addition to that, we should be able to acquaint ourselves with the various international standards, SDGs, 2X, bold models, so that we will build it into our business strategy, our models. It makes it easy for us to say, look, if we are designing this product for women, at the end of the day, I can measure that I've been able to sell this product to 100 women. And that is your impact. You can easily measure that. In addition to that, the story of impact or inclusivity is told when there's data to back it. So tell that data-driven story. Once you're able to define your impact, embed it into your business model, acquaint yourself with the standards you feel you can do. So if you can achieve 2 social outcomes out of the 17 SDGs, excellent. Define it clearly, put structures in place to be able to track these outcomes and be able to report as part of your productive outcomes, aside financial outcomes. So to me, I think that if businesses are able to do these things, they'll be able to make the needed impact. And at the end of the day, the gap between inclusivity and productivity, I believe, will be closed. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you very much. Aiken says to ABSA, I hope you do have support for the agriculture sector too. This is something I could easily answer for ABSA, but ABSA, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Joanne. Yes, we do. We do have, and we have specific programs in place where we provide financing support to small-scale businesses in the agri sector. Currently, we have partnership with GESAL, where through that partnership, we are able to do transactions or give facilities where in the normal course of financing, it may be challenging for a bank to offer. So I want to encourage the person who asked the question that please do not hesitate as soon as possible. Approach ABSA. There are facilities in place, particularly for businesses working in the agri sector, and we are happy to provide you the needed support. And what we do in addition is to offer training in terms of best agri related practices to ensure that you are successful in your farming business. So please approach us as soon as possible.
Awesome. I have one last question, and I think I'll give each of the panelists 2 minutes to just touch on it. We're in the era of AI and technology that is blowing our minds away. How can a company use new technology to impact the society better, or be able to show what their impact is? So I'll start with Trewa on this one.
All right, thank you, Joanne. I think there's always the opportunity to learn. There's always the opportunity to grow. I believe that once AI is, let's say, the new normal now, it will be of every organization's interest to invest in at least educating its people, being able to know how AI can help improve our operations and be able to channel the required resources to ensure that we maximize that to our benefit. And so to me, particularly for SMEs, because Growth Investment Partners is interested in building these companies. We deal with companies that have employees between 10 to 300 people with revenues between $500,000 to $50 million. Once you visit us, we believe that we'll be able to provide you with resources, with support. But once this support is there, AI can help you track your impacts better. AI can help you put all these impact storytelling together better. So to me, that is how what I believe AI can help organizations these days in business. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Paul, what do you think?
No, thanks very much, Joanne. Very, very similar to what Cheryl has said. Coincidentally, I was having a conversation with my team yesterday, and I said to them, of course, it's almost cliche now, we will lose jobs to people who know how to use AI, not necessarily AI as a tool itself. So as an organization, one of the key things we need to do is building capability around its usage. For me, I think that's unmatched. The more we use it, the better we get at it, and the more we're able to realize a lot more at it. The other thing is, and I know a lot of organizations that have interacted, when I get to interact with people, we talk about AI, we talk about the benefits, and we all know. But have we taken time to audit our current processes, to audit how we do things currently, to identify which areas, if I apply AI or if I implement or employ AI into, I would get the best results? For me, it's also being targeted around it versus large scale, everybody driving AI all over the place. Being very targeted at it to say, for this process, I need to employ AI to be able to get better. And then with time, we get to see efficiency improved. And then, of course, productivity also gets to go a notch higher. Thanks, Joanne.
Thank you so much. Obed, your final thoughts on this?
Yeah, so it's quite critical that noting the dispensation which we are in now, everyone learn as much as possible to know how to benefit from AI or the development in AI. So what we've done as Absa Bank is, as much as possible, digitizing our processes and the financial services we offer to our client. So as we speak, when it comes to onboarding, we have a digital platform where you need not go to our branch to be onboarded as a business. Through the digital onboarding platform, you go through the necessary process by just filling a form on your phone or your computer, and you get a banking account without going to the branch. What we are also doing is to offer digital financing. So using the short code *170#, which we know for MTN for mobile money, you can access our mobile loans. So without going to a branch, just using the USSD code, you go there, you go through the process, and immediately you are credited. Your mobile wallet is credited with a loan. Then this year, what we've launched is the agency banking, where we are saying that we will not be able to put branches in all the communities. However, can we leverage on the existing businesses to provide banking services to people in areas where we are unable to reach? Where instead of keeping their monies in their rooms or under their beds or pillow, they can just go to an agent of Absa and put their money in a banking account. What this does for them is basically to create a financial history where they can now leverage on that to have access to loans. So 50 cedis, 100 cedis, irrespective of the size of the money, through agency banking, you can put that money now in a bank account. So these are some of the things we are leveraging to ensure that we use AI as much as possible to provide banking services to our clients, irrespective of where they are located, whether they are at the Upper West, Upper East, or the southern part, irrespective of your location, irrespective of your financial situation, irrespective of your gender, irrespective of your age, you should be able to have access to financial solutions. Through these platforms, we are able to deliver this to our clients.
Thank you so much. There's a question that just came in, and Chewa, I'll let you answer it in 1 minute. We ran out of time, and so we would wrap up right after that. Who should lead productivity and inclusivity? Is it the public or the private sector? And where should it start from to meet the needs of the people? 1 minute, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Joanne. I think it's a collaboration of everything and everyone. I mean, both the private sector, individuals, the government, everyone has a role to play in inclusivity. That's how I would answer that. Joanne.
Thank you so much. All too soon, we've come to the end of today's webinar. The discussion was absolutely insightful, and we've learned so much about intentionally creating a culture of inclusivity, looking beyond the metrics as we create that culture, being intentional about equity and embedding inclusivity in our business models. So I know that the businesses that have joined us today have definitely learned a lot, are going to take a lot back, and there's so much to implement, especially the advice on how to be ready for investments as far as meeting social standards, increasing awareness, and tracking your social impact. It's been fantastic. So on behalf of the UK Ghana Chamber of Commerce and PII, I'd like to thank everybody for joining today's webinar. I also like to thank our esteemed speakers and the panel for sharing your expertise and knowledge with us. We do not take it for granted. The UK Ghana Chamber of Commerce is a member-based organization that promotes trade between the UK and Ghana through networking, trade services, and advocacy through webinars like we've just had. It is a good opportunity to join the chamber. There's so much to benefit from. So if you are interested in joining the chamber, please reach out to the team. This webinar will be posted online. So follow the chamber on LinkedIn and Facebook at UK Ghana Chamber of Commerce, Instagram and Threads at UK_Ghana Chamber of Commerce. And on X, formerly Twitter, UKGCC_Accra. Please subscribe to their YouTube channel as well. If you are looking to discover new pipelines of growth, of course, every business is, you are invited to join the chamber. Thank you so much once again, and have a lovely day, everyone. Bye for now.